On the last day of February 2026, a surprise strike by the US and Israel brought smoke back over Tehran. For Chinese car companies that have hung on Iran for 20 years, what used to feel like a Middle East golden land has now turned into a bubble. Geely left, BYD pulled back, Lifan collapsed, and now only Chery remains. But it's stuck. It can't fully leave and it can't truly stay. 20 years ago, Iran was a key Middle East foothold, the frontline base for Chinese automakers going overseas. 20 years later, it feels like a Middle East island, a crossroads where every option is painful. So let's quickly review the timeline of how Chinese automakers entered Iran. Rewind 20 years. Back then, international sanctions were relatively looser. On Iran's streets, you mostly saw Peugeot and Renault. Chinese automakers come in with high value for many cars using CKD assembly, shipping parts and building the cars locally, and they forced the door open. In 2002, Chang'an entered first, then Lifan, Berlin's Auto, and Chery followed, rushing in one after another. By 2017, Chery had already taken nearly 20% market share, standing side by side with the French brands. That was the golden era for Chinese automakers and Iran. It was also the moment Middle East felt closest to China. But in 2018, the US unilaterally tore up the Iran nuclear deal and restarted the toughest sanctions in history. From that day on, dollar settlement was cut off, key components stopped, and logistics costs surged. And that was only the beginning of the long winter. By 2026, Iran's economy had completely crashed. Let me show you a few numbers. At the start of this year, Iran's free market exchange rate fell to $1 to 1.5 million rials, but the official rate was still stuck at 42,000 rials. This dual exchange rate system pushed the currency market into chaos and inflation hit 52%. For an ordinary Iranian office worker, after a full month of hard work, their income converts to just a little over $100, around 700 RMB. For big consumer items like cars, regular people simply can't afford them anymore. And here is the most frustrating part for Chinese automakers in Iran. On paper, they might earn hundreds of millions of rials, but if you convert it into real money, it probably can't even cover shipping. That's what people mean by paper profit, real loss. If currency collapse is a slow disease, then war is a direct hit to the artery. After the fighting started, Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. What does that mean for us? China is the world's factory and also a massive importer of resources. About 13% of China's imported crude oil comes from Iran. If the strait gets blocked, domestic fuel prices immediately feel the pressure, but that's not even the most deadly part. For EVs, there's a critical upstream risk. Celestite, a key raw material linked to permanent magnet motors. About 41% of China's imports come from Iran, and domestic inventory would only last 3 months. Then there's methanol. In the first 2 months of this year, about 72.3% of imports come from Iran. These are lifeline materials upstream of the auto industry. If supply gets cut, motor-related production for many EVs could face shutdown risks in the second half of the year. And it gets worse. Several major shipping giants have clearly said they will temporarily stop accepting car transport orders on Middle East-related roads. In a situation like this, companies can only survive by cutting losses. In January this year, Geely made a tough but rational decision: a full exit from the Iran market. They shut down the official website, handed over the stores, and cut off all partnerships, fast and clean. And Geely isn't the only one. BYD quietly scaled back as early as 2022. Lifan exited in 2020 after its cash flow broke, and Brilliance Auto also paused production in 2021. But while everyone was pulling out, one company was still holding on: Chery. As one of the earliest Chinese brands to enter Iran, Chery built 2 major joint venture factories there, with annual capacity as high as 300,000 vehicles. Maybe it wants to leave, but it can't. And it can't move fast enough. The biggest problem is simple: the money can't be transferred out. If profits can't be sent out of the country, how can the business keep running? So Chery was pushed into the most helpless option: barter trade. Yes, the most basic kind of trade, goods for goods. They partnered with a Chinese metal company, Tongling Non-Ferrous Metals Group. Chery ships auto parts into Iran, then brings back minerals like copper and zinc from Iran. This is smart in a desperate situation, but can it last? This model depends heavily on trust and stable borders, and right now, Iran's border area have already turned into war zones. And what's even more worrying is that Iran's conflict could drag the entire Middle East down with it, and then hit Chinese automakers' global plans from the side. Before, people always said, if Iran doesn't work, there's still Saudi Arabia, there's still the UAE. But this new wave of fighting is cooling business confidence across the whole region. Insurance costs are surging, banks don't want to lend, and even in Saudi Arabia, usually seen as stable, the cost of doing business has gone up. So looking at it this way, the brands that took a big hit in Iran may have all made the same mistake. They treated risk-taking like resilience. They placed heavy asset-based bets in a place with extreme political instability. And once geopolitical risk exploded, years of investments could turn into zero overnight. And Iran's future may not even be a normal car market anymore. It may become a geopolitical bargaining chip. Private companies will most likely pull out completely. The ones that might stay could be only the deeply tied-in players like Chery or special players with state-backed support who can do cars for minerals deals. 20 years and Iran sends a clear warning to every Chinese automaker. And global expansion, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, and you definitely can't put them in a basket filled with explosives. From early exploration to boom years to shrinking to withdrawal, this may be one of the most painful but also most valuable risk lessons for Chinese automakers going global. And saying goodbye to a once promising market isn't surrender, it isn't failure. Learning to spot risk, cut losses in time, and walk away with dignity, that's how you truly learn how to go global.